Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today it's a fond farewell to my campsite here at Oak Camp. It's been my home for the last just about 2 weeks and it's been a wonderful break away from the hubbub of normal life. I have had to take a few little breaks away from here to do other things, but I've actually stayed here for 8 nights over the last 2 weeks. So it was a thoroughly restorative and really rejuvenating experience, as anybody will know who spends time in nature. And you know, I've done many things, enjoyed sharing those with you, like cooking my meals and the various other things, the products that I've had the opportunity to review here, which I've also shared with you too. Now don't worry, this is the last in my series from Oak Camp. So those of you who don't enjoy the outdoors and nature bathing, as I believe the term is, for going outside and just letting nature wash over you. And I think nature bathing, or forest bathing I think they call it in Japan, is a very apt term for just taking time and returning one's mind and body to the rhythms of nature, which has been wonderful. Sleeping here at night where it's a little cooler than indoors. It's been very warm actually the last 2 weeks. Today's uncharacteristically slightly chilly, but a little cooler in the night time, sitting by the fire, listening to my radio, things like that. I set up my nature cam, my camera, around the campsite over the last week, and it's been amazing the number of things I've encountered here that I've never actually seen in the daytime. So we've seen a fox a few times. I'd expect that around here. I did see one in a neighbouring field the other day. Deer are prolific in this area, and you can hear things pushing through the woods at night, but I never actually saw one. You know, even when I got up in the night and shone my sort of O-like Marauder torch up there, which illuminates the whole sort of acre of land around me, never saw deer, but they seem to be on my nature cam every single night. And loads of squirrels and rabbits and everything you'd expect. So nice to be amongst nature. I thought I'd take the opportunity though to answer a few questions. Some of them are about Oak Camp and the time I've spent here. Others are just general questions about men's style, self-development, personal grooming. You know the regime by now, what we're all about here. And I'm going to take the opportunity, I printed them out, I found myself a computer, printed them out, and here we go. So I'm going to get straight into them. My first question comes from Art Mallory, who says, I enjoy the outdoor content. What are some tricks to keep the mosquitoes and the bugs away? Well, I'm lucky in the first instance because here in the UK our nasty sort of critter count is very low in anyway. You know, we only have a couple of snakes, only one venomous snake on these islands, and I've only ever seen 3 of them in my entire life, so they're not very common. And when it comes to mosquitoes, I've got a mosquito net on my tent, so I keep that closed in the latter part of the day so nothing sneaks in there. And there's mosquito nets on the windows of the tent too, so I make sure that I keep my bedding area quite sterile. When I'm sat by the fire at night, the smoke which emits from the fire does a good job of deterring the pests as well, because they don't like smoke. They need oxygen to breathe too, and you know, it just keeps them away. So basically that's it. Bit of forethinking, you know, get the old mosquito net closed at night time or in the latter half of the day so they don't go in there to sort of hide waiting for me to go to bed, and when I'm sat next to the fire it tends to keep them away. There are other things you can do, like using various creams, the most powerful of which contains DEET, which is a repellent to most insects and biting insects, but it does tend to be rather smelly. My wife puts it on her horse to stop that getting bitten, but there is human versions too, which I've worn in the rainforest, and it was very effective. So that's one way to go. So, non-camp related, from Abdullah. I'm currently 22 years of age and I don't know where to start as a complete beginner in wearing suits. Do I have any tips? Well, as a complete beginner, you've got a blank sheet of paper to start upon. And what I would say, if you're 22, I'm going to guess you're a sort of young man, your need for a suit is going to be quite broad, unless you're wearing it to work every day or something of that nature. So I would stick to the basics, all right, the principles of wearing suits. And that is, if I was you, a young modern man today, and I was looking to buy my first suit, it would either be a charcoal grey or a navy in colour suit. Very practical colours. If I was going to narrow it down to one, I would go for navy. A navy suit is kind of wearable in any situation. Then I would go for contemporary style. So it would be a single-breasted, notch lapel suit with flat pockets, quite conservative size lapels. You don't want anything really big. You don't want a peak lapel, which is peeking over your shoulder. You want a nice notch lapel which isn't too broad, isn't too narrow on the lapel. Somewhere in the middle. Makes it timeless. 2 buttons on the closure. 3-button closure suits, you don't see them anymore. 1-button closure suits, less common again. So go for 2 buttons. Remember, you always keep the bottom button undone. When it comes to the trousers, I would go for flat or non-pleated trousers with no turn-up, all right? So make sure the trousers are quite contemporary in nature and they fit you well. And that's all I would say. That's all you need to do. The most important thing I would suggest is to make sure the suit fits you well, because that's perhaps more important than the actual cut of the suit. So when you're buying that suit, go to a reputable place, maybe a men's clothiers. If you're buying it made to measure or something like that from a brand like Hockerty or Oliver Wicks, you know, make sure you get the fit correct when you receive it. You want it to look good. Go to a tailor if you're not satisfied with the initial look and get it altered to fit you perfectly. You know, the drape of the jacket, the length of the sleeves, the length or the break of the trouser legs. And you'll have a suit, a navy suit in that description, which you'll be able to wear for years in many different situations, casually, formally. If you pair it with a white shirt and a single coloured, solid colour tie, you're good to go for anything. You know, when you get that unexpected call to a wedding, to a job interview, you've got something in the wardrobe that's there for you. So that's what I would suggest. My next question is for Jonesy. Or answer to a question, I should say, and he asks, I'm really enjoying your informative videos from Oak Camp. My question is, do you own the land, or is it from a friendly farmer or landowner? The land is owned in trust by my family. So I do have unlimited access to this land. So that is fair to say. It was purchased a number of years ago, well over a decade ago. And this is how I'm allowed to come here and light fires. And, you know, it's not public property at all. It is in private ownership. So it does give me a bit more latitude when it comes to camping here. Of course, you can't just go out, throw up a tent and light a fire inland if you have no permission to do so, because it could anger the landowners, could cause damage. So in my situation, I'm very fortunate. The land is owned by my family and I have unfettered access to it. So hope that answers your question. So next question, or 2 questions really. One is from Oliver Carlson. Did you take a book or books to Oak Camp to accompany you? And which ones did you take? And this goes hand in hand with Ian, or sorry, I beg your pardon, is it Ian or Jan? Jan, I think it is, who says, what books are you reading at the moment? I couldn't come here for 2 weeks and not have access to the internet without really bringing something to do in my spare time. So I did bring some books, and I'm going to tell you what they are right now. But I brought books from different genres, because I don't just read one book at a time. I tend to like to read a book for entertainment, a book for information and for knowledge, and I kind of bought 3 from those categories. So my book for information and knowledge is a book which was recommended to me actually by a viewer to the channel, who wrote to me and told me about this book and said, based on books I've mentioned in the past, it would be a book which I would enjoy. And it's a book called The Last Imperialist, and it's about a man, a diplomat called Sir Alan Burns, and his sort of journey, his diplomatic career, so to speak, in the latter days of the British Empire. And it talks about his career starting off as a junior sort of diplomat in British high commissions, going up to becoming ambassador level, and his interactions with notable characters from the British Empire's past. So it's quite interesting. It doesn't, it's not a revisionist sort of book, as often many of them are about the British Empire. It's not trying to rewrite the British Empire as a nasty, monstrous entity, or as a benevolent sort of empire. It's interesting, it's factual, it's an interesting story of a man's journey through life, written by a chap called Bruce Gilly. I'm really enjoying that one. I'm only about a third of the way through it because I kept switching between books over the last 2 weeks, but I'm enjoying it so far. My book for entertainment is a book by Michael Connolly, and it's called The Night Fire, and it's a book from the Bosch series. So if you follow the literary works of Harry Bosch, who was a LAPD detective, later a private investigator, it follows the story of a sort of career detective on his journey through investigating homicides and other crimes. And you might have seen the TV series on Amazon Prime, I think it is, in which Titus Welliver plays the lead role of Harry Bosch. Very good TV series, actually. It's very close to the books, and there's loads of books, 20 plus books. I'm working my way through the series. This one is very entertaining. I've enjoyed that one in the evenings. And finally, in the woodlands as I am, I could not have not brought something in keeping with the environment I'm in. So I'm reading a new book just released by a chap called Ray Mears. Now, British viewers and perhaps others from around the world will be familiar with Ray Mears. He's kind of the king of bushcraft, certainly the man who coined the term bushcraft, I think, and popularised it to the world. He releases a number of books from time to time, and this one is all about the British woodland. And as I'm just on the sort of clearing of a small woodland, which you often find me, spending my time in, or on the edges of. This is a book, I haven't really made much of a dent in it because I keep picking it up and, reaching ahead to art or sort of sections of the book relevant to where I am, because in here he talks about the trees, the relationship that we have here in the UK with our trees, huge part of our society in the past and to current day. So great book by Ray. But a natural history. So entertainment, history, and natural history is what's been keeping me going there. I would certainly recommend all of these books to build a base of knowledge and have a greater understanding of the world around us. So, next question from Sean Sankey. Ash, nothing better than being near a fire outdoors on a mild summer day. So, question is, what are a few tips you've changed your mind about on your journey through style and self? And as your development has progressed? Wow, what a deep question. Bit of sort of ideology involved there. And I did think about this one beforehand because I didn't want to just say something off cuff, which is quite important. The question is asking me, what have my thoughts on life changed as I've been on my journey through this life? The first thing I would say as a 53-year-old man now is that don't rush through life, all right? When you're a younger person, we're always dead keen to get where we're going. We are, desperately keen to climb the career ladder. You want to get to the top, you want to get promoted, you want to earn more money, you want to get married, settle down, have children, and you're always pushing forward. And one thing which being in the outdoors reminds me is that the cycles of life, the rhythm of life goes on and on and on. It will be continuing in this blue planet, will be continuing on its journey around the sun long after every single person watching this video is dust. And it tells me really that time is for the moment, all right? We only have merely the blink of an eye in the existence of history. It's important to focus on the here and now and not keep pushing forwards to the future. Don't rush to the end of your destination. It'll come up fast enough. Never ever say to yourself, I wish this day was over. I just want to get through this week, because you're wishing away time which you will never get back, and when it's gone, it's gone. You can't go back. You can only enjoy the moment. That's one thing. My second point of 3, which I will give you, is don't set the value of your life to money. All right, you often, if you watch social media, you'll see people driving supercars, wearing highly expensive wristwatches, clothing and so on. And there'll be points of your life where you think, I'm just not earning enough. I need to have more money. I need to do more to get more things. Never set your personal value to the amount of money in your pocket. Your values are all set within you from an early stage in life, often by influencers such as your parents and other mentors that you encounter through life. But don't make decisions solely based on money. Yes, I know everybody has to pay the bills. Everybody has to, have a base amount of income to live the life which you would hope to have. But don't make terrible decisions based on solely money. Your value is much more important than money. Time, as I just said, is a greater sort of currency that we will ever have than money. Because once you have loads of money, then what? Look at these hyper-rich men that we often hear referred to. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. They count their billions in the multiples, in the tens of billions now. They can't really spend it. What good is it to them? They can't leave it behind them. They can't really enjoy the here and now because they're so deeply entrenched in making more money. The money that they have has little value to them. So I'll leave it at that, and I will merely say, don't set your value on the money that you have, and don't keep trying to earn more and more. Evaluate what you need, and if you have enough, live your life to the greatest extent that it can. And finally, the one thing I would say to people, and the one thing I've kind of learned in my life, is that you've got to survive to get through life. It reminds me of my military years, and there used to be a chemical warfare was something which hung over us during my military service, which was at the end of the Cold War period. And we always thought that if there was to be a global conflict, weapons of mass destruction like chemical weapons would be employed against us. So we trained constantly to be ready if there was a chemical war. And we had this booklet which told us how to survive in a chemical environment, and it was called Survive to Fight. And basically it said, to be able to fight, to be able to do your function as a soldier, sailor or an airman, you first got to survive. And when there's a chemical war, this is what we do. And it even gave instructions in how to go to the toilet in a chemical environment, which was humorous to us at the time. But the title of the book was Survive to Fight. And I think of it all the time, because as I've gone through life, I was in law enforcement for 23 years, military for 10 years. There were situations where I did fear my life was in danger, occasionally, mostly in law enforcement, never in the military. I wasn't in a sort of, my military service wasn't in a period of personal danger for me. But certainly in the police, every day you went out onto the front line, you were in a position of danger. You never knew what the next call was. I was in situations where firearms were discharged in close proximity to me, knives, things like that. And I always remembered the ideology, survive to fight. To get to the end of today, to go home to my family, I first have to survive. And that goes for all walks of life. Whether you're working in an office and you're under so much pressure that your personal well-being is in danger because you're taking on, or you're being given so much work, you're under stress and you feel like you can't take it anymore. Your resilience has been totally broken down. You hate going to work. Survive to fight. Survive to live is perhaps the ideology by which I focus my life today. If I'm under a situation where I'm under so much pressure, so much dislike and unpleasantness, get out of it. Survive. Survive through that situation and then move forward to live. So think about that one. Those are my 3 suggestions. Sean, I hope they were of some value to maybe some of you watching this. Next question from Russ Arnold. Where do you go to the toilet? My wife wanted to know. Well, good question. I go to the toilet in 2 ways up here, relating on the type of visit to the toilet I need to make. Around the back of my tent, that's where I go to make water, all right? So simple as that. Number 1, round the back. Number 2, I am not one for crouching in a hedgerow at this stage of my life, and there is lavatorial facilities probably a couple of 100 yards from where I am in a property I have access to. So once a day, when I need to undertake that element of my camping existence, I will walk to the the property and make use of their facilities, which they're kind to extend to me during my stay here. So that's so as you know. There's not a bucket around the back of the tent in which I read my book as I'm visiting the lavatory. So there we go. I hope your wife finds that satisfactory. The next question is from Modern Dandy, who says, have you ever been to the opera or ballet? Did you like it? Please do tell about your experience around the campfire. Okay, well, I've never been to the ballet. I have been to the opera, and I have to unfortunately report to you that neither are experiences which I wish to revisit anytime soon. I guess it depends on the opera. I went to see, I forget the name of it now. It was an amateur group who played an opera in a local, it was a well-known opera, and it was, to my ear, torturous. I took my mother and my wife, and it was 2 hours of my life which I would pretty much rather have spent doing anything else. Maybe I'm a cultural Philistine and I haven't been to the right opera yet. I'm sure if I went to the National Opera House in London and the right opera was playing, I guess I quite like something like Miss Saigon, something more contemporary and interesting. Maybe I would enjoy it, but certainly local opera is not something I'm going down again. However, you've got to try these things. You know, how would I know if I didn't like it unless I tried it? So don't sit back on your haunches and say, oh, that's a load of nonsense, you know, that dancey boys go to. I wouldn't go to something like that. No, it's worth giving it a try. If you go and it's awful, you've learned something. You've got an anecdote to retell to people alongside the campfire in years to come. However, you have to live the experience to form an opinion. When it comes to the ballet, not something which attracts me, to be honest. I know interpretive dance and all that sort of thing is perhaps modern culture, but it's not really for me. But I'm open-minded. I've yet to go. When an opportunity exists, I'll certainly give it a try. The next question, quite a long one here by the look of it, it's from Darren Clonch. A random few things I've asked myself lately, and the question is posed to me. What is a decent trench coat for a budget that will keep you dry in long summer thunderstorms without overheating? I can find cold weather trench coats, but nothing focused on the summer storms. Well, I've got a couple of trench coats, and what I tend to do is buy my raincoats, I tend to call them rather than trench coats, which have linings which can be removed. All right, so I've got one from Jaeger and I think one from Marks and Spencer's department store, or John Lewis here in the UK, and they both have removable linings. They're thick padded linings. So in the summertime, in the warmer parts of the year, you can remove that lining and it's just a thin layer of the protective material, keeps the rain off you. In the winter time, you button in or you zip in the lining, and it's normally a cushioned padded lining. And in all honesty, a raincoat or a trench coat like that with a padded lining zipped in, it is equally as warm as pretty much any overcoat, because you've got several layers of insulation there, traps the air, keeps you nice and warm. So don't just buy one which is, you know, thickly padded. Buy one in which the lining can be removed, and then you've got a four-season garment, which is much more, you know, usable in daily life. Second question from Daryl is proper clothing storage. Do you hang your clothing all the time or pack away half your wardrobe during the off-season? Bit of both. When it comes to my certain items of my winter clothing, so sweaters particularly, I really enjoy good quality proper woolen knitwear. I always wrap them up, pack them in the bags which they tend to come in, because these days I've been buying much more high quality things which come in little bags. I put them in their bags, I zip them in a container, and I put them away with moth protection, so bits of cedar, things like that, in the winter months. Sorry, in the summer months. So there's no chance of them being scoffed by moths, and I don't need them in the wardrobe taking up valuable wardrobe space. So I do put them away. Certain other items, like you know, my tweed jackets, which I'm not going to wear this time of year, I do just hang them in the wardrobe, where they, you know, the drape of the clothing and on the hanger keeps them looking good. I don't want to have to steam them in the winter if I were to fold them up. So a little bit of both, to be honest, depending on what the garments are. And finally, do I have a preference with regards to a particular type of coat hanger? The gentleman Darryl says he's looking to upgrade. Do cedar ones make sense? Do they make the clothes smell more like cedar? There we go. So, my answer to that is certainly when it comes to coat hangers, avoid metal ones and plastic ones if you can, because they tend to be quite thin. They don't offer a good drape or a good hanging base for your clothing. I wouldn't go down the route of buying cedar coat hangers because it will be crushingly expensive. All right, if you've got loads and loads of clothes, I wouldn't do it because it's just going to be too dear. I would go for wooden coat hangers if you can. They're natural, they're breathable. Obviously, it's made of wood, and they will offer the best sort of hanging experience for you. That's the route that I take with my things, my better things in my wardrobe. But there we go. I wouldn't really be writing big checks for 20 or 30 cedar hangers. It's going to be too expensive, and I just don't think it's that good. I don't think they offer a good enough return on what you're investing your money in. So finally, and this is from Addo Top. My dad, so it's a bit of a statement as well. My dad was an odd character, an engineer's grinder who worked in a forge. And I can hear his voice saying to me that when I dressed above my station, I was just trying to be superior to other people. I wonder what you would reply to somebody who suggests that the way you dress is trying to be superior to others. And that is a good point, because particularly if you're upgrading your attire, right? So people are unaccustomed to seeing you dressed smartly. And you may be the sort of amongst the hoi polloi, the proletariat, who wears jeans, t-shirts and sneakers. And then you start upgrading your attire. You're wearing chinos, nice shoes, maybe you wear the odd sports jacket or a Harrington jacket or a shirt with a collar. And your associates and contemporaries will look at you and say, what's all that about? What are you dressing like that for? Are you trying to show us up? And that's what it's really all about. People will say, well, you dress to imply that you're of a higher status to the people around you. That's not the case at all. My response would always be, if somebody suggests that I'm dressing to elevate my status amongst others, is I say I dress for myself. Purely for myself. I do not care what other people wear at all. I don't make reference to it. I do not offer suggestions to people around me who dress in a way which I don't think is appropriate. I might say it internally to myself, but I certainly wouldn't raise it with anybody else. I dress for my own self-esteem and my own confidence, because I know through experience that if I wear a nice pair of trousers, maybe a pair of chinos and a sports jacket, it complements my appearance. All right, I'm a medium-sized man of average stature, but if I wear a sports jacket, it adds definition to my shoulders. It gives me a better silhouette. It makes my waist look slimmer. The trousers, the shoes that I wear, they add interest to my clothing. People make comments about them. They say, oh, you're looking smart today. And that boosts one's self-esteem and your confidence. It makes you feel better about yourself going through life. I absolutely couldn't care less what other people think about the way that I dress. It is of no concern to them. They can call me what they like. I certainly do not dress to make anybody feel bad about themselves or good about themselves. I dress for myself. And that's how I would respond if somebody said, you're only dressing to be superior in your appearance to those around you. I would hope if people feel that I look superior, they may take the hint and perhaps include something a little more timeless and elegant in their own attire. And then they too could benefit from the boost in confidence and self-esteem which comes from being an intentionally well-dressed man. So there we go. I hope that was some questions which you will find interesting and my responses to them. Thank you for everybody who wrote in. Pleasure to answer them. Don't forget, ask any questions at any time. I'll try and respond on a case-by-case basis or in the comment section if you drop me a question, or occasionally I'll do a video like this where I'll bring a few of the questions together and answer them at once. So there we go, folks. We've come to the end of our journey here at Oak Camp. And it's time for me to go back to normal life, to sleep in a feather bed and have a shave every day in front of hot and cold running water, where I don't have to boil the water just to have a decent shave, which is something I'm going to look forward to, and it's going to be a nice novelty to go back to that. So if you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, click the old subscribe button. If you'd like to ask me a question, do so in the comment section below, or you can even drop me an email if you like, and I'll try and get back to you personally as soon as I can. If you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee, or you can become a patron. And my patrons, whose names you will see at the end of this video, get extra videos from me. They've had a couple here from Camp which haven't been on the main channel. So if you'd like to get in on that, come and join me as a patron, and I'd be delighted to have you on the team. So until the next time, take care, enjoy the outdoors if you can, when you can, and drink in the splendor of Mother Nature as often as you can to get that equilibrium to your life too. I'll see you again very soon.